Part 136. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 1365. Ji Xiaoshan's gentle hands stroking Yan's body suddenly became rigid. The next moment she squeezed her chin tightly. Open your eyes and look at me. Yan Song didn't open her eyes. She finally seemed to be intolerable and cried hummingly. Ji Xiaoshan stood up slightly and stared at her. You don't want to? Yanj bit his lip, opened his eyes, and looked at him tearfully. I don't think you like me. She lowered her eyes, avoiding his scorching gaze that almost ignited a fire. This kind of thing can be done by two people in love. Ji Xiaoshan sneered, gritted his teeth, and tightened his grip on the chin of Yanj. So? What do you want to do with Shi Yan? Yan Song, I don't like him. She blinked, and tears rolled down her eyes. Ji Xiaoshan pinched her chin to loosen her fingers, and then touched the corners of her eyes to help her wipe her tears. The action can be described as gentle. Who do you like, then? Yanj broke away from his restraint, leaning her head slightly to avoid his close face. She reached out and wiped the tears on her face, biting her lips and not speaking. Ji Xiaoshan had no patience. He stared at Yan Ji, and the emotion in his eyes rolled. The next moment, he reached out to cover Yan Ji's chest. Yan's eyelashes were drooping, and tears rolled out again. Don't force me, all right, it will be painful, and life is better than death. Ji Xiaoshan's hand was stiff. He raised his eyes and stared at Yanj in disbelief. You forced you. Yanj didn't nod her head, tears rolled more. She suddenly turned her head and buried her head in the pillow. The low, somber whine sound came out because she was too sad and her whole body was shaking. Ji Xiaoshan grabbed her by the shoulder and pulled someone over. He opened his mouth and wanted to ask, but he couldn't ask anything about her face, which seemed to be broken with a poke, and held her tightly in his arms. The smell on her was really tempting. He's a little hesitant. His desire has been surging in his heart, and even if she sobbed and sobbed heartily, she still couldn't destroy the crazed desire in his heart. But he didn't know why, but he put up. She said he didn't like her. He couldn't tell for himself. He didn't understand what he liked. He had more of an instinctive desire for her. This desire made him reluctant to delay for a minute and a second. He just wanted to occupy her, inside and outside. She swallowed into her belly. Don't force me, all right, wait until you like me. Shall we do this kind of thing? She looked up slightly and looked at him with tears. I heard two people in love do this kind of thing. Even more wonderful, I want to experience it in the future. Ji Xiaoshan's thoughts were interrupted. He begged her pitifully begging gaze, and suddenly he caught the focus of her words. He frowned slightly, unbelievably. Do you like me? Yan Ji's expression was slightly panicked, but immediately she smiled slightly. The expression of crying and laughing made people feel astonished. She whispered, yeah, I don't believe in love at first sight, but I like you, see you at first sight, and don't know why I want to cause you attention, want you to see me, think, want to be with you. With that said, she reached out and quickly wiped away all the tears on her face, and then pretended to be strong and fierce and stared at Ji Xiaoshan loudly. You can't do whatever you like with me, Ji Xiaoshan. If you force me, I would rather die. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 1366. This said, tears shed again, and Yan Ji hurriedly held Ji Xiaoshan, and closed his eyes and cried, you are the one I like, don't be like him, please, please, don't be so painful to me, it's better to die. Ji Xiaoshan is now full of hearts and minds, all doing her. She couldn't stand her crying appearance, and couldn't stand the sweet aroma brought by her whole body. Don't hesitate every minute. But his body was stiff. I didn't know how, and kept echoing her words. She said she would live better than death. She said, don't be like him. She said, I like you. All his desires were suppressed by him. He didn't know what was going on now. Obviously burning, but there is a delicate satisfaction. So you were thin like that before because it was better to die. He reached out and stroked her hair. Touching it a little bit, the tenderness in his voice made him feel weird. Rest assured, I'm really different from him, I won't treat you like that. He felt like a magic wand, and continued, I hope you are willing to do that wonderful thing with me. It's ridiculous that he used beautiful words to describe that kind of thing. It is ridiculous. It was exactly what he could say. But he not only said it, but he didn't really go any further. He saw her looking at him with gratitude and said, thank you, thank you. He turned out to be extremely helpful to her. Raising his hand, he touched her soft hair again, sleep. She approached him softly, put her head against his chest, hugged his arm, and uttered a soft nasal sound. He relied so much on him that it reminded him of cats. Her breath quickly became even, but he looked at the ceiling, but couldn't sleep. The commotion in the body continued unabated. Her soft body was humming like a cat, and she kept hooking him repeatedly, sweeping him with waves, and he couldn't calm down at all. Can't go on like this all the time. He pursed his lips, and his face was worse than death. Just tell her tomorrow, he likes her. Anyway, he really liked her. Just thinking about it can turn him over. But this idea is too illogical to implement. After all, he read so many textbooks and knew that the so-called likes in women's eyes actually required a little specific factors. So the next day, Ji Xiaoshan took Yanj to a charity ball. Since she said she wants to like each other, the premise of love is to cultivate feelings. Anyway, now that he finds her, naturally he doesn't hesitate to spend time on cultivating feelings. So from this day on, the news that a woman appeared next to the prince in Beijing not only spread throughout Shanghai, but also the Ji family over the capital. Regarding those outside speculations and rumors, no matter whether Ji Xiaoshan or Yanj, they will not answer. After Ji Xiaoshan went in and out of various occasions, Yanj met many officials and wives. Although this world is wild and chaotic, but many places are still singing and dancing to peace. Just like these places where Yanj often goes in and out. However, this illusion of peace did not last long. Everyone thought that Shanghai, the last pure land, soon fell. The Ji family arranged for Ji Xiaoshan to take a boat abroad. Ji Xiaoshan did not leave. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 1367. Yan Ji thought he was such a heartless, and unkind animal, and there should be no attachment to this person. If you are not allowed to pack your luggage, you will leave Shanghai. To her surprise, Ji Xiaoshan did not leave. He led a team of men to the battlefield to fight the enemy in person. Yanj is still in Ji's house. Since the beginning of the war, she has seen Ji Xiaoshan only a limited number of times. The situation in Shanghai is getting worse and worse, and even places like the Ji family are being raged by the war. Yan Ji can't wait for Ji Xiaoshan to return and move to the place under the of the crowd. Those who defend her left by Ji Xiaoshan are no different from the dead. The fire was blind, and more than 20 people around her arrived, but not 5 remained. Along the way, in addition to the sound of artillery fire around, is the mournful cry of adults and children. The car can no longer walk on the street. Yanj and his party dodged. The road ahead has been changed several times, and will still be rerouted due to unexpected accidents. Not only is there no further from the destination, but it is getting farther and farther. Just as Yan Ji and the others broke up because of a wave of fugitives, her wrist was suddenly pinched. Xiaofeng the man took her into her arms the next moment, and hugged tightly. Damn, your fat old man dare not recognize you. It's Shi Yan. How come this guy came to Shanghai? Yan Ji stared at him in astonishment. Shi Yan half held her and walked towards the crowd. With her eyes on Shan Jun, she stretched her hands and pinched her nose and laughed. Although the hoarse laughter was open, but he could hear it, he should be very tired. People were crowding around, and the shells and cries were too high, and it was not the time to speak. Yanj snuggled in his arms, raised his head slightly to look at the man's eyebrows. Probably, I haven't seen each other for almost half a year. Yanj never expected to see this guy in this plane. I can still meet in such a Shanghai street, it is like a lottery in a lottery, which makes Yanj feel particularly surprised. She thought that before the separation was completely separated by one cut and two breaks. I didn't expect to meet again. He was covered with dust, red blood in his eyes, and dark circles around his eye sockets. His clothes are not the young military uniforms he usually wears. Liang Cheng is far from Shanghai. It is impossible for Liang Cheng to come to Shanghai. So why did he come to Shanghai at this time? An idea came to mind. But immediately, Yan Song suppressed this idea. She clutched Shi Yan's arm tightly. Several times I wanted to tell him to go where Ji Ziashan agreed. But in the end, he couldn't say. After another round of bombing, the dust was flying around. Shi Yan embraced Yanj and entered a narrow alley. Why are you here? Before Yan Ji's words were finished, Shi Yan pressed her sideways against the wall and kissed her lips. Both were dusty and gray-faced, and neither was a clean person. Even the lips and teeth are earthy. I didn't drink for a long time, and my lips were very dry. But in this situation, the kiss lasted a long time. Shi Yan's big hand was pinching Yanj's waist, pinching Yanj's chest, and touching Yanj's entire body across his clothes. The toughness of his body was against the song, and the song was against the wall, and had to be close to him. She could only be forced to bear this stormy kiss. It wasn't until a long, long time before Shi Yan let go of his words. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1368. Looking at the red and swollen mouth that was raging by him, Shi Hong's red bloodshot eyes seemed to have entered the sun, and the bright can burn the heart. He kept pecking at the lips of Yanj again and said to himself, Huh, Lao Tzu can't see you. When he sees you, the sperm comes to mind. In such a place, Lao Tzu wants to do you. Words of song. Really sperm on the brain. I didn't hear Yan Zhuang and asked him, why did you come to Shanghai? Lao Tzu has been here for a long time, Shi Yan said anxiously when he said this. Ji Ziashan's turtle son will not let Lao Tzu see you. Where is Liang Cheng? Yan Ji was surprised. You can't come to Shanghai just to see me? Is something wrong with Liang Cheng? I gave Liang Cheng to others. Shi Yan was surprised when she saw Yan Ji, and laughed twice. Huh, I can't bear you, Liang Cheng can't do without Lao Tzu, you can't do anything without Lao Tzu. He reached out and slapped Yan's hair. He loosened his hands before Yan Song frowned, and then squeezed his ears. I am really going to plant it on you in my life. How about seeing Lao Tzu? Glad to be stupid, you know you're thinking of Lao Tzu too. Words of song. Never thought of it. He will live well without her. When Nima Ta appeared, she had a headache. Yan Ji saw his teeth white crooked when he laughed, and stomped his feet. He wanted to kiss his mouth, but he could only catch his chin. So he stepped back and took a sip on his chin. It's not worth it. She frowned, staring at him in disappointment. Shi Yan, it's a fool to give up rivers and mountains for the beauty. Lao Tzu is not a king, so there are no mountains or rivers. Shi Yan said a song, and lowered his head to catch her lips. You are not a beauty, you are a woman of Lao Tzu. Yan Ji stared at him helplessly. She finally understood why the Mighty One still couldn't detect the situation and ascend to heaven. Look at this guy, they are all so stupid and idiots in the plane, and their brains are so awkward, no wonder they have to be able to detect the situation. She clasped his face with both hands. Shi Yan. She said quietly, I am with Xiu Shan. So what? Shi Yan raised his eyebrows, and his eyes were full of discomfort. You are now in Lao Tzu's arms, and I am a Lao Tzu woman. Yan Ji looked at him, his eyes gradually calmed, and gradually, with a touch of sorrow, cultivation, he saved me many times, and he saved my life. Shi Yan, I like him. Her hand rested on his heart. A person's heart can't hold two people. I like him and treat you as a pest. Fart. Shi Yan bowed his head sullenly, biting Yan's lips. Fart, you are so stupid and stupid, I know that you are like an unfamiliar cat, whoever feeds you is just like who. After he said it, he laughed again, and still had a meaning in his eyebrows. He reached out and patted Yan's face, saying, after a while, you will continue to like Lao Tzu. Shut up now, and Lao Tzu will take you away from Shanghai. Words of song. Leaving now, isn't everything she has done? Yan Ji was anxious, but there was no big expression on his face. Only gazing at Shi Yan, Xiu Shan will not be so domineering and unreasonable like you, and he never scolds bad words, he is especially good to me. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1369. The same thing you said when you met Bai Yuking before. Bai Yuking doesn't even match Xiaoshan's shoes. Yan Ji was held by Shi Yan and had to go forward. Shi Yan, how many women are needed? I don't think I'm good, it's worth you to throw Liang Cheng. Shi Ji answered without answering, you're good in bed. Words of song. This topic can't continue. Originally wanted to solve him with good intentions, don't delay love and forget the business. But now, Yan Ji has no energy to solve him. However, Shi Yan said, Ji Xiaoshan is not as good as Lao Zi on the bed. The guy was stunned at the first glance, and the man with a bad life wanted to confuse you, such a stupid woman with a gentle appearance. He won't see through his vicious mind. Words of song. Of course, she can't say that she hasn't had with Ji Xiaoshan yet, otherwise this guy's tail can definitely go up into the sky. She could think of it, he would definitely say that Ji Xiaoshan would not talk for half a year without that function. Shi Yan didn't speak. Shi Yan felt that he was right. He sneered, which kind of man does he want? Do you still want to stay alive? Yanj can't make him so arrogant anymore. He simply said, he is rich, powerful, well-connected, and knowledgeable. He took me to eat a lot of things that I haven't eaten, and taught me a lot of things that I didn't understand. Whatever it is, he can buy it for me, so he's not as stingy as you, not even buying a good Chong Sam. Shi Yan. Lao Tzu hid a lot of money. By then you will buy what you want. Yan Ji walked a few steps side by side with him, shaking his arm and saying, Shi Ye, this is really not worth it. Sooner or later, you will regret it. I started to regret when you sent me away. I have regretted it till now. Yan Ji sighed, this guy is just a muscle. Shi Yan, you are a great hero. This kind of world should be a great hero like you to save everyone. Even Ji Xiaoshan can carry a gun on the battlefield, how can you shrink back? Shi Yan's footsteps, do you think I am a great hero? He seemed to be praised, and laughed. Lao Tzu also feels that he is a great hero. There will be countless great heroes in this world, but I want to be a great hero for you. The words that the song is about to export stubbornly. She felt that Shi Yan was holding her hand too hard. Her phalange hurts a bit. This pain made her a little panicky. She tried to break her hand, but Shi Yan squeezed even tighter. He turned his head and stared at her, I will die on you in my life. Words of song. Who can say into love words is still so straight-hearted love words, Yan Ji thinks, Shi Yan this man, as if the skills of love words are also very good. She almost cried and was so moved that she broke down. Fortunately, the pain reminded her. She bowed her head and did not respond to Shi Yan, but was silent. Shi Yan turned his head and looked at her several times. Why not speak? Yan Ji quietly looked up at him and said, when you suddenly realize that day, you will definitely regret it, and think that you are a silly hat now. She narrowed his eyes, looking at Yan Ji's eyes revealing a bit of dangerous meaning. Do you think I'm a silly hat? Words of song, this person really grasps the point. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1370. The desire to survive caused the song to respond very quickly and shook his head. No, I mean you. I'm afraid that one day you will regret it, especially regret it. You will surely hate me when that happens. Shi Yan smiled. Lao Tzu's last regret is that he did not bring you to Shanghai in person. Words of song. Shi and Shi Yan's brain circuits were completely off the line and had to remain silent again. With the exception of the concession, almost all of Shanghai is being raged by artillery. Weeping people and broken limbs are everywhere. Shi Yan ran around with the song all day and couldn't run out of the fire. Yan Ji did not know when Shi Yan had eaten. Anyway, she was very hungry. Hungry, thirsty, and tired. And Shi Yan was also injured. The guy's arm was injured by the stones splashed by the shell, and almost a blood hole was opened. In this environment, the wound is not treated in time, and if it is infected, it is troublesome. So Yanj simply discussed with Shi Yan, Ji Ziashan has a place in the French concession. I was going there today. I didn't expect that there would be artillery fire today. Before the words were finished, Shi Yan interrupted her. Grass, why don't you say it early? Go, let's go there now. Words of song. I thought this guy would be incompatible with Ji Ziashan, so he would not go to Ji Ziashan. Is she thinking of people too good? At night, the planes that had been throwing cannonballs all returned, and the road to the French concession went much smoother. But when it was really outside the French concession, Yanj found out that the outside had been surrounded by a crowd of ordinary people. Don't even go in, it's not even close. Yan Ji and Shi Yan can only find another way. The surprise song was unexpected. Before they could find a way to go in, Shi and Shi Yan met Ji Ziashan. To be precise, it is Ji Ziashan who is taking a group of people to patrol the street. Seeing Yanj, Ji Ziashan rushed forward a few steps. But before the Yanj was held in his arms, Shi Yan on the side promptly pulled the Yanj behind him. Ji Ziashan's eyes fell from Yan Ji's body to Shi Yan's body. The eyes of the two men set aside. Staring at each other, although they were expressionless, the tide was surging, and in a short glance, the invisible sword lightsaber had killed several times. Ji Ziashan led the two to where he lived. The atmosphere along the way was a bit low, but the words did not speak to ease the atmosphere. She was carried on the back by Ji Ziashan, and she was so tired that she squinted to save her strength. Shi Yan's arm was injured. Even if he wanted to recite the song, he could only stare at Ji Ziashan all the way. Ji Ziashan didn't take the stone. In fact, in his eyes, he only cares about words. When he arrived, the tired speech song had fallen asleep on Ji Ziashan's back. Ji Ziashan walked towards his bedroom by holding someone. Shi Yan blocked him, put her down. Ji Ziashan stared at the man and sneered, "You are a smart person, you should know that it is not your time to speak." Yeah, as soon as Shi Yan spoke, the guard's hands next to Ji Ziashan were all on his waist. Shi Yan doesn't know, at this time he talks and farts no different. But he watched Ji Ziashan keep the woman back into the room and never came out again. Word songs are hungry. When I woke up, I was cleaned, and there was porridge on the bed. She sat up and raised the porridge, only to find that the porridge was still hot. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1371. Ji Ziashan called in the room next door. The voice was low, and the door was separated, and Yanj didn't hear what he was talking about. After drinking porridge and eating vegetables, Yanj felt better. She had no clothes on, covered herself in a quilt and wanted to look in the closet. As soon as she got out of bed, the door squeaked, and Ji Ziashan in the study next door finished the phone call. Yan Ji met his eyes, smiled and said, "I'm so lucky to meet you today." Ji Ziashan interrupted her, "Did you ever say that to Shi Yan?" Yan Ji froze and nodded, "Yeah, I haven't met you and him today, I may be dead." Ji Ziashan walked to Yan Ji in a few steps and squeezed people to the bed, "It was my negligent arrangement, I'm sorry." When he returned in the afternoon, he learned that Yanj had separated from his people. This afternoon he was looking for words. Ji Ziashan felt that he could hardly imagine life without her. The feeling of losing was so terrible that even if he thought about it now, his body was uncontrollably scared. He held her tightly in his arms and murmured, "It will never happen again." Yanj asked him to hold her tightly, and when his lips were about to fall on her lips, he asked softly, "Cultivation, now, have you fallen in love with me?" Ji Ziashan whispered, "I've fallen in love with you long ago. Don't say you don't know." He lifted his fingers off the blanket covered with words and covered it. Yan Ji held his shoulders, raised his head slightly, and stared at him in disbelief. "Really?" Ji Ziashan didn't know whether he liked her or not. But this afternoon he realized the despair and pain of losing her. It felt like a nightmare. The appearance of Shi Yan is like a dose of cardiotonic. Before Ji Ziashan was relieved, he felt a crisis again. He now desperately needs to appease him with his body. He felt that it was the only way to suppress the turmoil and anxiety in his heart. He hates Shi Yan so much. Obviously wondering what happened on the day she was with Shi Yan. But he was reluctant to ask. "I just think that mentioning Shi Yan, especially in the presence of her, can make him intolerable." He just wanted to bury all his anxiety and insecurity into her body. He didn't respond to her words this time, but bit her lip with a strong and overbearing bite. Yanj did not resist. She was submissive and allowed him to act, and only softly said, "I want to drink water. I didn't drink water all day. I didn't feel that I had escaped. I lie in your arms so comfortably now, and I feel very thirsty, especially thirsty. I want to be thirsty, just hurry and pour me a glass of water." Ji Ziashan. After all, she could not afford her soft words, and he immediately got up and poured a glass of water and handed it to her. Yan Ji drank water in a small sip, raised his head and asked curiously, "Xiu Shan, how did you come back today? Did you just patrol the streets outside? When can this battle stop?" Her eyes were full of curiosity and admiration. She should be a kind of blind worship to him, or she would not look at him with such eyes after going through a day of tragedy. Ji Ziashan's eyes darkened. "I'm afraid this battle will not stop for the time being." He paused and said softly, "Tomorrow, someone from the Ji family will pick me up. After my death, the villain blackened again." Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1372. Yan Ji looked at him in surprise. "So, will you leave tomorrow?" Ji Ziashan didn't know. In this battle between nations, he alone cannot completely turn things around. But even so, he didn't want to leave. He wanted to pick her up again, and the phone rang in the study. "Go and answer the phone." Yanj waved at him with a smile. Ji Ziashan stared at her gorgeous smile, anxious to go up immediately, but eventually nodded slightly and turned to the study again. Hanging up the phone, Ji Ziashan and Yanj ordered 2 words, and dressed in military uniforms went out overnight. He said that he would return before dawn, so that Yan should not worry. But after dawn, Yan Song did not see him return. When she went downstairs, she saw Shi Ying sitting on the sofa in the living room. Shi Yan's wound had been bandaged. When he saw Yanj, he immediately got up from the sofa, and he couldn't hide his guilt in the eyes of Yanj, Xiao Feng. Yan Ji knew what he was going to say, and she interrupted him, Shi Ye, go back. She looked at him sincerely, if every man thinks like you, our country is really dead. Even a person like Ji Ziashan knows to carry a gun at a critical moment. I don't want you to become that deserter. Shi Yan stared at Yanj. This woman, when she said this, was expressionless, like an official attitude. But he didn't know why, under her eyes, it was a little embarrassing. After all, she compared him to a man like Ji Ziashan. He stared sharply at her, and asked, what if I die? Yanj smiled aloud, Shi Yan, you have to live, you have to work hard to live, you live, many people can live, you die, those people die. She took a step closer and helped him organize his scattered clothes and fasten all the buttons. Her hair was loose, her eyebrows were down, her white face was tender, and he wanted to reach out to touch, but his fingers turned in the air again and fell on her shoulders, pushing her slowly away. He was a little unwilling, but he couldn't say where he was unwilling. He glared at her and asked, if Lao Tzu died, would you be with Ji Ziashan? Yan Ji looked up slightly and looked at him with a gentle look, Shi Yan, I have never liked Bai Yuking, I have never liked you, nor would I like Ji Ziashan. I think that love between men and women is far less important than life and death. When she said that, she smiled, I can't live anymore, what love is needed? She took a step back and looked away after pulling away from two people, Shi Yan, your life has just begun, because a woman ruins a lifetime, it's not worth it, even if you want, I don't want to. I don't want to destroy a hero, she said. Her tone was light and slow, and she looked at him with a smile and tenderness. But at that moment, he felt that none of her smiles and gentleness reached the bottom of her eyes. In the flash of light, he caught the most important of her words, have you ever liked Lao Tzu? Yan Ji nodded, I want to try to like it, but I really like you when I like it, and I don't like it when I don't. She looked at him without any guilt at the bottom of her eyes, but rather frankly, Shi Yan, many things in this world are more important than the love between men and women. You are a man and you should know better than me. Shi Yan didn't say anything. He stared at the song, glaring for a long time, and scolded grass in his mouth. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1373. This woman can be ruthless. Shi Yan was so angry. He didn't even get a shot, he was driven away by her ashamed face. Shi Yan was so angry that he couldn't even let out a little anger. He even felt that if he didn't go, it didn't look like a man. If I went to the battlefield, would you wait for Lao Tzu? No, Yan Ji answered without hesitation. I won't wait for anyone. What about Ji Ziashan? What do you and him plan? I don't know, take a step and look at it. Yan Ji smiled, Shi Yan, you will definitely come back alive. I'm afraid of death, I don't want to go at all, Shi Yan said angrily, then stared at the song, when Lao Tzu is not, you take care of yourself, don't be as stupid as yesterday. People are scattered. You will follow where Ji Ziashan is in the future. He is the lifeblood of his family. Anyone can have something, and he will never have anything. Yan Ji nodded, okay. She looked at him, her smile gracious but alienated, Shi Yan, come on, you can do it. Of course I can. After having breakfast with Shi Yang, Yan Song sent Shi Yang to the door and watched his back go. She didn't expect him to understand everything she said. But at this moment, she really hoped that he would survive. He is a hero. The hero should live to the end. The artillery was still raging. All day long, what I could hear in my ears was the sound of booming artillery. Yanj stayed in his bedroom without going anywhere. In the evening, Ji Xiaoshan returned. He sustained a gunshot wound to his waist and abdomen. 2 doctors followed. Under such difficult conditions, Ji Xiaoshan's injury can be properly treated, which is a lucky thing. The people upstairs and downstairs are busy. The words are no longer chaotic. She has been waiting in the living room, and waited for Ji Xiaoshan to call her in, before going upstairs and into the bedroom. Ji Xiaoshan was lying on the bed, probably bleeding, and looked pale. He wasn't lethargic, saw Yanj enter the door, tilted his head, and smiled slightly at Yanj. "Are you worried?" Yanji nodded, walked to him, sat down, raised his hand, and held his other hand that was not infused with needles. "If you are tired, just sleep, I will guard you." Ji Xiaoshan didn't close his eyes. He definitely looked at the words, "I won't die, don't be afraid." He squeezed Yanj's hand backhand. "I know what Shi Yan left." Yanji nodded. A person as large as Shi Yan must know that if he leaves others, this is not something to hide. But what Ji Xiaoshan didn't say is that not only did he know that Shi Yan left, he also knew the words that Yanji and Shi Yan said before Shi Yan left. Those words, one word at a time without any mistakes, were dropped into his ears. He wanted to ask her if she was like. But looking at her with such certainty, she could not say a single question. In the end, he just said, "I won't leave you." Yanji smiled softly and looked at him with a smile. "Cultivation, you seem to really like me." Ji Xiaoshan also laughed. "So when I get hurt, shall we get married?" He spoke out in a more euphemistic way about men and women. He thought that he had never thought about getting married anyway in his life. As long as you can stay in front of her and devour her every day, let alone get married, he can give her whatever she wants. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 1374. Yanji heard his words, his eyes rejoicing. "So, let's talk when you're hurt, now close your eyes and sleep." Ji Xiaoshan is really sleepy, tired, and painful. But I still want to keep my eyes open, to see if her joy is true or false. I really want to ask her, then, "Do you like me?" But then I can't ask. Forget it, she will always be by his side anyway, and she will always like it. He closed his eyes with a smile and dreamed. However, such a good dream didn't last long, and Ji Xiaoshan was awakened by pain. He opened his eyes. At first glance, I saw the words of song close at hand. When he woke up, she raised her hand and covered his mouth. He could see the knife in his chest. The small fruit knife should have been in the fruit basket on the coffee table on the first floor. But at this moment, it was stuck in his chest. He finally knew where the pain came from. He was not afraid, nor was he afraid. She looked at her with a puzzled expression and a surprised look. Silently asked her, "Why? Why did you do this? Is it because of Shi Yan? Or is it because of something else? After all, why?" He was asked to kill him. Yanji did not look up at him. The point of the knife entered his heart. Yanj will swallow the body of the beast to the side, and smoothly take his half cup of blood with a water glass. She pulled out the fruit knife sharply. She inserted it into her own chest and took half a cup of blood. She endured pain and dizziness. The only little aura she practiced was carried at her fingertips. Using his finger as a pen and blood as ink, draw a blood curse on him. She looked up and met his surprised gaze, and said softly, "I can't solve your heavenly illusions, I can only use the spirit as a sacrifice, and you and my heart are the blood, and I put this pure curse on you, Never mind where, if I meet you, I will feed on your heart. Jiaishan interrupted her, why? His voice was weak, Su was too weak, and he felt a little grieved. Yan Song met his gaze with a look of amusement. So right away, she didn't look away. She started off first, fearing that the other side of Jiaishan's body, which belongs to the swallowing beast, would come out. Jiaishan is really innocent. But he is a devouring beast. Even if he was wronged again, Yanj could not be reconciled. She whispered, you will know when you die. Jiaishan wanted to laugh, but his lips could not be lifted. Sadness enveloped his eyes like the dark night, and his dark eyes stared at Yan Song, as if he wanted to get Yan Song into his eyes. I just want to hear you say. Yan Song did not return to him. She looked at him with a water-stained look. Poker face. She has also asked countless times why she swallowed the beast. However, he never responded to her. At this moment, she was here with Jiaishan, as if she saw another one herself. But immediately, she put aside this idea. She and devouring heaven beast are never the same. Tell me. Jiaishan's voice was like a humble begging low in the dust, his face pale, his voice weak and shivering. It seemed as if he would lose his breath the next moment, but he was still firm, and his breath remained unbroken. Yanj raised his hand, pulled out the fruit knife from his heart, and wiped his neck. He opened his eyes wide. It seemed like countless times, the moment she was dug by him, her face was dead. There was a light noise near the window. The figure of Shi Yan jumped into the room from the window the next moment.